Administrative Council allows us to do this. This is our fourth year. And we've had a lot of great experience, and Deborah Leigh and Amanda and I have been working on it since the very beginning. The LAC accuses us of having had secret meetings 4 or 5 years ago in a little room underneath the stairs, and that's where it all got started. But I'm really excited about this afternoon session for 2 reasons. 1, the topic, but 2, because the speakers are from the University of North Alabama, which just happens to be in my hometown of Florence. So they come from there. I know that they're good people. Amy Butler is the acquisitions librarian, and Lee is the instructional services librarian. They both work at UNA. Amy received her bachelor's in economics, so she and Deborah Leigh have something in common from UNA, and then she got her master's in library and information studies from the University of Alabama. And Lee graduated with history and geography from UNA, and also got her master's at the University of Alabama. And today they're going to talk about how they implemented new technologies and kind of got excited when they got some new leadership. And I'm really sure that we're going to be able to find a lot of ideas to steal, so I'm going to turn it over to them.
Okay, good afternoon, and thank you all for coming. Today, Amy and I are going to talk to you about how our library made the journey from stagnation to relevance. And most of this journey was through the implementation of different technologies, but not everything we did was a technology. So some of the things in our presentation are simply steps that we made or took along the way and don't relate directly to emerging technologies. And let me also say that we are not cutting edge. Our library is relatively small with a small staff, but we hope our presentation will give those of you in similar situations some ideas that you can use. Just a little bit about UNA. We are located in Florence, Alabama. We trace our roots to LaGrange College, and we relocated to Florence in 1854. We have over 7,000 students, and that's a head count, not a full-time enrollment count. And we offer more than 50 undergraduate majors, 7 master's degrees in 7 areas, an education specialist degree in educational administration. And historically, UNA has been focused on teaching rather than on research. But there has been more emphasis in the past several years being placed on research, and with this shift in focus, we saw this as a good opportunity for the library to reestablish its relevance. Now a little background about our library. We have 4 libraries on campus with no central administration, but there is central purchasing and processing of materials for all 4 campus libraries. The 4 libraries are a departmental library for education, a departmental library for music, a library associated with the K-6 laboratory school that's affiliated with the university, and then Collier Library, which is the main library on our campus. We have over 400,000 print volumes, almost 250,000 electronic books, and close to or a little over 150 different databases. A little more about Collier, which I said it is the main library on campus. We have a director of library services who started last summer. We have 8 full-time librarians and 1 part-time librarian, 9 full-time staff members and 3 part-time staff members, and a number of student workers. So where were we? Basically, we were in a physical building, and what we offered were physical library materials. We also offered traditional library services in the traditional way. An example of this is we weren't really quick to utilize new technologies. An example is our lag time in the implementation of interlibrary loan, email delivery of interlibrary loan articles. Only within the last, I think, 2 years have we offered this option for delivery of interlibrary loan articles. The one area that we have always kept pace with technology is through our databases. We have participated in the network of Alabama academic libraries, and we're able to get some of the earliest big deals from database vendors through our participation in that. We're also very fortunate that we are able to subscribe to a number of databases directly. Collier is also home to the largest general purpose computer lab on our campus, which has the longest hours. So just a little bit about why we feel we were stagnant. We think one of the main reasons is that people didn't want to leave their comfort zone. Patrons were happy. We were falling back on the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We were too focused on our current users, those who are happy with our services. And we weren't really thinking about students, the new generation of students that were coming in who were using new technologies to communicate. Another reason that we were stagnant is that we do have a small staff, as I mentioned, and we have limited resources. And I think time is probably our most limited resource. We all have numerous responsibilities, and there just wasn't a lot of time to explore new technologies. I mentioned the computer lab earlier. Our reference desk is actually located in the middle of this computer lab. So the librarians were, and actually still are, spending about 80 hours a week being essentially lab assistants, because most of the questions we get at the reference desk have to deal with printing and other lab computer-related issues, which those are important questions to be answered, but it was taking up so much of our time, we didn't have time to explore new technologies. Another reason for our stagnation was that up until 4 years ago, we had an administrator, the Dean of Information Technologies, who was over 4 areas. He was over Collier Library, the Educational Technologies area, which included distance learning and the Educational Library. He was also over the Computer Center and Continuing Education. All of these areas except Collier had their own director. After the dean's promotion, there was some reorganization, and this dean's position was dissolved, and a director position for Collier Library was created. So while we searched for a director, one of the librarians was appointed as interim director, and that person happens to be Amy. She did this job, the interim director job, along with her regular responsibilities. So she was pretty busy. So we had a period of a few years where there was really a sense of complacency. Everyone was doing their job, but because of divided responsibilities, we didn't want to do anything major until we had a new director in place. So there was really no embracing of change. So in this climate, only small baby steps could be taken. And Amy's going to take over here and tell you about those. Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay, good. All right, as Lee said, we were kind of stagnant, and we meant to mention this in the beginning, I think, but we kind of forgot. We are not there. We know it's a journey to relevance, but it's kind of like going after a moving target. You're never really going to achieve it because what is relevant is going to change along the way, because there's always going to be something new. Students are always going to have different expectations. So I do want to tell you a little bit about the things that we had been doing that were kind of baby steps along the way, as we said. Well, the first thing was the periodicals holdings list. And this is where we missed just a golden opportunity to make a whole lot of money. We had a searchable online periodicals holdings list before Serial Solution was in business. And that was one of the librarians to me was going about every other month to all the different vendor websites and pulling down the titles list, doing a little editing, putting them in an access database, and having an active server page where that could actually be searched. If I had but thought I would not be standing here, I would be rich. Missed opportunity, I guess. But we, as soon as Serial Solutions was up and running and that was available to products, I was so happy because I was so tired of downloading those lists. But we were trying to be able to meet our needs of our users there. Another area, another baby step, was a gradual transition from paper to electronic forms. We were way too slow to do this, though. We held on to our print ILL request forms an obscene amount of time. We were making people fill out on print forms, which was just shameful, but we eventually did gradually transition. And as we put that online, we also added some new online forms to replace having to make phone calls and emails. So we did the Ask a Librarian, the library instruction request forms, which were well received by patrons. Virtual reserves. That is an issue. We did not have the resources to purchase a true virtual reserves module through our ILS. So we wanted to address this issue, and our solution was to do links, persistent links to subscribed content, which is not true electronic reserves, and we do realize that, but we were trying to do the best we could with limited resources, and unfortunately that is still the format that our virtual reserves take. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. We have gradually transitioned some things, like we did print table of contents deliveries for our journals. So we were actually photocopying the table of contents from journals, sending them to faculty via campus mail. And as we realized, so many of the databases offered email journal alerts, we saw an opportunity to transition that and actually get rid of a little bit of our workload, because then we wouldn't actually have to photocopy the table of contents from those journals. And faculty are really happy about this because, now they get an email with clicks to full text if it's a full text journal, and even if they can't get full text, at least they can get abstracts. So that's very, very useful for them. We also gradually introduced email delivery of overdue notices. And also, we implemented courtesy email notices, which amazingly enough, our circulation staff is thrilled with, because it seems our faculty would just throw away an overdue notice that they got in campus mail. But when they get a courtesy notice in an email that says this item is due, they will actually renew it because it's so easy, because all they have to do is click on that link in the email so they renew their items, or they call and apologize and say, I didn't realize I had this. So that's been very successful, and that was a very, very easy thing to implement. Again, we were way too late in doing that. We should have done it a long time before we did. We had a federated search product when they first came out. We had Serial Solutions Central Search, which was not well received by our librarians. The instructional staff did not like it. The students did not like it. And since I had to deal with students that were complaining because they couldn't understand the results, I didn't like it. We didn't keep it very long, only about 2 years before we decided that it just wasn't for us. I will, in all honesty, say part of our problem with that was because we had a federated search product without having a link resolver. So I think we put the cart before the horse. We should have done that in a different order. We might have had a little bit better results. As Lee has also mentioned, we are home to the largest general purpose lab on campus, which sometimes creates a problem because we have everybody in our library typing the research paper or working on class assignments, and we can't get to computers and people with library questions at times. So we did do a wireless network within the library so people could run in their own laptops, and we also have laptop checkout to try to alleviate some of that problem with all the computers being full. And that has been not as successful as some of us would have hoped, but we have added some laptop minis to that collection of circulating laptops. To hopefully, if we advertise that more, it will be more effective. So why do we need to change, and why do we need to change now? Well, part of the issue is, well, I wasn't in a library as a librarian when the internet first came in, but I do remember Gopher and Links and Alpine and all that stuff as a student in the library. And I remember I worked in the library, so I've always been kind of a library geek. So there was a point, where the library was the place to go for information, and the librarian was there to help you. So we really didn't have a lot of competition, but with Google, and man, that came fast, didn't it? Google now, we kind of have competition. I think we kind of got in the old Henry Ford thing, you can have any color you want as long as it's black. And when you're the only person offering a product, hey, that's great. There's nowhere else to go, and they're happy with their black card. But when there's some other game in town, we have to be more receptive to what they want and what they need. So the new competition was a really It was a driving force. We also, as Lee mentioned, have had some library reorganization. But even before we had our new director, we've had quite a few librarians retire in the last several years. It was quite interesting. We don't have a lot of turnover at UNA. People tend to come and they stay for a long time. But we had a large group of faculty, library faculty, that came in the 60s and 70s. They kind of all left pretty quick. So we got a lot of new people in. And as we got new people in, and as we had also staff leaving, it was an opportunity to reorganize some of the positions to say, do we really need this many people in catalog, and do we really need this many people in this area? So as we have had people retire, we have moved people to new positions to better fit their skills, and we have also eliminated some positions and created new positions. One of the new positions we created was a digital technologies librarian position, which we created in 2007. So even then, we did recognize that we had an issue that we needed to deal with, and we have tried gradually to work on that. Of course, as she said, when our past dean retired, that did create a whole new reorganization for the library, and now we do have an administrator who is focused on us, which is really great, because our Dean of Information Technologies was a wonderful person, But he was in charge of 4 areas, and the other 3 areas had directors that could go and bug him. We didn't have a director. He was our director, so he didn't get to focus all his attention on us. So we're really, really happy to have a new director of library services who is only responsible for Collier, so that we can go and harass him and he can guide us into new things. And we're very fortunate that he is very forward-thinking. He is really on top of technology. And ever since he has come, he has made us quickly reevaluate what we do and how we do it. And a lot of the things we've done in the last year are because of his influence and leadership. Another reason that we need to change, and we need to change now, is the university is placing more emphasis on distance education. And that creates all kinds of new problems for librarians. As you all know, how do they get our resources? And I wish our problem was just that they're 5 states away. We actually have an online MBA program, and we have quite a few students in China. So we have to figure out how to make sure those people in China get the resources they need, as well as the people 5 states down. So that's creating a very interesting challenge for us and making us reevaluate what we do. Of course, we also have accreditation expectations. There are, of course, as with any university, there are various departmental accreditations, but we are right now in the midst of our SACS reaffirmation. So, of course, we have to make sure that every I is dotted and T is crossed for that. And also with our SACS reaffirmation, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the SACS QEP process that's now in place, or Quality Enhancement Plan. But UNA's QEP topic is research literacy, which we hope the library will be heavily involved in, so we can see some changes coming down the road in that area. So now that we talked a little bit about why we have to change and why we probably need to go ahead and do it quickly, we wanted to see what are some of the changes or some of the outcomes we want from these changes. Well, one thing, we need to reach students where they are using the tools with which they are familiar. Because let's face it, we know where students aren't. And at least in our library, they're not in the library for library assistance. They might be in the library to use our computers, but they're not really coming to the library for their information needs. They're going somewhere else. They're on their mobile phones. They're on their devices. We need to address that. They're in social media. We need to address that. We need to provide the resources our students need in formats that they can access. All those great books sitting on the shelf gathering dust are wonderful to have, but they're not doing our students a lot of good if they're not using them. So we need to rethink what we buy and how we buy it. We live in a media-rich environment. A lot of our students now, they want that sound bit, they want that video clip, so we need to address that. So we need to refocus our collection development and acquisition efforts. Another one of the outcomes we'd like to do is it assists faculty in integrating library resources in their courses. I'm the acquisitions librarian, so I get all those big bills for the databases. So we spend a lot of money on databases and even on print materials. So we want to make sure that our faculty really know what we have to offer and they integrate that into their courses. Because no matter how great the product is we offer, if faculty aren't requiring their students to use it, most people are not going to log into data sets just to play. I mean, they're not interested in that. They're not going to use these tools unless our faculty are requiring that. So we hope that we can help our faculty realize the tools that we offer and help their students utilize them. Because we do have some issues with this, because I think a very interesting story, we had a faculty member who was a new faculty member to UNA, who apparently designed all his assignments for his first semester without looking at the resources that we have. And he designed a whole exercise on ebook. We didn't have ebook, so he was very upset when his students could not complete this. But he was very understanding and very apologetic. He just assumed we would have ebook. And we do have ebook now, but it was a little alarming for his students and us that we could not help them complete that assignment. So how do we achieve the outcomes that we want to achieve? Well, we need to change. We've already said that. What are we going to change? We're going to change, or have changed, our presence, the tools and services we offer, and our resources. Oh, and by the way, before I forget, we do have copies of our PowerPoint for everybody, so if you would like a copy, make sure you get one, because I know I'll forget it then. Upgrading our presence. As I said, our new director is very technology-oriented. So one of the first things that he said when he got to the library is, why don't we have a Facebook page? Why don't we have a blog? Why don't we have a mobile interface? Well, we didn't have a really good answer for that, but we quickly had a Facebook page, which we're still need to work on. We have a blog, and I think Lee, did you have a blog with it? Okay, well, and most of the time, and now I have all those nice hints from lunch, and I'm thinking, boy, these have the same thing on them all the time. Maybe that's a bad idea. But I think some of our older faculty that might not tend to use Facebook as much might use the blog more because it's more of a news page. So this is where we post, any events we're having, any new resources, anything I cancel, as well as just general information about the library. One of our plans for the future for that is we hope that we can build kind of a stock database, kind of a hints for those of us that post to the blog. If you don't have anything to post, maybe you can post remember you can ask the librarians for help with this, or how about searching this database? Because I know that if it gets stagnant, people are not going to go there. So that's a problem that we really do need to address. Because as much as I love to buy databases, I only have so much money. So I can't buy a new database every week so that we have something to post on the blog and Facebook. We also have done a mobile interface. And that QR code is for our mobile interface, and the handout does have a QR code. This is actually the second version of our mobile interface since our new director came on board. I was very upset about that because I had already done this PowerPoint, and then I was told they redesigned the mobile page. So on Monday, I changed my PowerPoint. And actually, the new mobile page was done with campus guides. So if any of you have campus guides, there's a new add-on module, or relatively new add-on module, mobile site builder, which apparently makes it very easy to design a mobile page because our webmaster designed that page pretty quick and didn't tell me. But that's what it looks like, and you're welcome to go to it on your phone. I don't know if you can snap that QR code from where you are, but we do have the QR code on the handouts. And of course, the next thing about our presence to update was the use of QR codes, which Lee was opposed to, but I thought was kind of cool. So
During Missy's presentation earlier, I have some good ideas.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, Missy, because she acted like I was crazy when I said I wanted to do a QR code. But we're putting the QR code on promotional materials that we're going to give out during Welcome Week, because we're going to host an activity during Welcome Week for new students, and hopefully this will, at least to the new students, push the availability of our QR code. So we'll talk about updating our tools and services. This is more fun because I like to play with software. So this is something I am more interested in. Well, we're very fortunate that we had a local donor that gave us the money to license content to him. We've had it for a few years. In the beginning, we didn't use it a whole lot, but we are gradually building our digital collections. The embedded librarian program, we're using the course management software, and unfortunately, not all of our campus will use the same course management software. The nursing department uses a different. We use Angel for everybody but nursing, and they use eCollege. So we are embedding librarians in those course management systems. Initially, this was thought of as a way to address distance learning students, but as time has gone on, it turns out that it is being used more in face-to-face and hybrid courses than it is in distance learning classes. I think the faculty response to this has been very positive. In fact, we're a little worried now that we might outgrow our staffing. So if more faculty keep asking for this, we may have to put restrictions on it because there's only a few instruction and reference people to do this, and it's very time-consuming if you do it properly. So we are a little worried that that might grow faster than we can make do with. Our references, as Lee said, it's lots of computer questions, but not a lot of true reference or research questions. So one thing that we have implemented, which is not a technology, is research consultations. Probably something most of you are familiar with, appointment-based reference. One tool, though, that we are using to help aid with this is WC Online. Have any of you ever heard of that? It's actually a writing center product, and through Lee's collaboration with our own writing center, she became aware of this. Before she implemented this, everybody that wanted to schedule a research consultation contacted Lee. It didn't matter what faculty member they ended up with, they started with Lee. Lee had to coordinate with all the reference librarians their schedules, the students. So this is going to turn out hopefully to help alleviate some of that problem, because the student can go in, see who's available at the time they want an appointment, and actually schedule an appointment themselves. The librarian then gets an email that there's been an appointment scheduled, and when you schedule the appointment, you have to answer some questions. Like what kind of assignment, what have you already done, so that the librarian is better prepared for the session. And since these are required fields, they actually have to put something in there, which, no matter how many times when you say you can email and ask for one, and please give us this information, well, I think probably 90% of the time they didn't give you all the information you asked for. You say, what have you done? And they would ignore that question and, answer the other questions, but not what had they done. So this is going to be hopefully very, very helpful. And this is a relatively inexpensive product, so if you are interested in something like that for your research consultations, I was surprised at how inexpensive it was.
What was it called again?
WC Online. And actually, if your local writing center, if you have a writing center on campus, if they are using this, apparently nobody had ever asked before, but we asked if we could share a registration database, because you do have to create a login, and they actually let us, so that our students that schedule writing center consultations can use that same login information to schedule their research consultations, which is nice, because it tends to be the same students that are going to need writing help. Okay. The area that we were most behind in was link resolver, I think, or one of the areas. And I think this is probably the single best thing that we have done for our students since I've been in UNA. It's certainly been one of the most well-received products we have ever purchased. And we actually have enabled that in Google Scholar, so that students on campus can see the full text at UNA link within Google Scholar. And we've posted to our blog and Facebook how they could do that from home, how they could set their Scholar preferences so that they could access our full text from home. And people at our school that are much smarter than me were able to fix link source, so that if something is not available, they get the link to the ILL form, and when they click on that, it pre-populates the fields for the citation information, which is very, very, very nice. We've managed to make some people very, very happy. Unfortunately, those people were not our ILL people who are not happy with us, because ILL business has picked up since that form. It's just right there on link source. You can just click on that form, and it fills it in for them. People that wouldn't fill in the form, they'll type their name. They wouldn't type all that citation information, but all they have to type is their name now. They're really using Interlocker and learning a lot more, which I think is a good thing. Not everybody agrees, but we'll move on. At the same time that we implemented link source, we also did EBSCO discovery. I know Mississippi State has EBSCO discovery. Does anybody else have it? Well, I must say, for EBSCO discovery, my reference librarians tend to want EBSCO over any other product that we have, or any other interface, because I have to pay more for some of our databases on the EBSCO platform than I would have to pay on, say, ProQuest, because they don't like ProQuest. And I grudgingly do that. But so far, our reference people have been happy. We have one faculty member on campus who, no matter what we have done since I have been there, we have been unable to make this man happy. He loves discovery. We have got probably 10 emails from the man since EBSCO Discovery has gone live. And he said that this was the best thing that had happened for research since he'd been at UNA. But I think a long time. And he's been a long time. I think he's actually more in love with link source. But to the users, it's all kind of together. They don't see the distinction between link source and discovery. I was just happy that he was happy. It's almost earned its price with that right there to make that man happy. But we have been fortunate, because I don't know if you're not really familiar with discovery, one of the first things that they did in the process was we sent them a list of the databases we had, and they sent us back a spreadsheet broken down by database. It says, 89% of the indexing in this database is included in discovery, or, broke it down to that level. And most of what we had was fairly well covered within discovery. So there's not some of the reference databases like the Oxford titles. People tend to want to search those directly anyway. They're not the type of thing that you really need in a discovery product. So far we've been very happy with discovery. We haven't pushed it as much as we're planning to in the fall. mainly targeted certain classes so far, and the classes that we have targeted have been very receptive to it, very, very happy with it. We do like that we can integrate the catalog, although I confess I was a little heartbroken when we did have a session with some students, and one of the first things they said was, they see the catalog only limiter, and they're like, can you not get a limiter that says exclude catalog? I'm like, kind of not the point. But they did want to exclude the catalog, so I was a little unhappy with that. But one thing that it does integrate that I was very happy about is we have purchased several Alexander Street Press streaming video products, which weren't getting the use I had hoped they would. And those are actually part of Discovery. You can make those part of Discovery. There's a little glitch with them, and hopefully GovSco is going to fix that fairly quickly. But I think Lee just had it up for you to show or to see. I think that's enough. Okay. I think there's been a lot of talk in the last 2 days about LibGuides. Well, we were again behind. We didn't have LibGuides when our new director came on board. We have LibGuides now. And in fact, we so much liked LibGuides that we upgraded our subscription to Campus Guides. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Campus Guides, but kind of just souped up LibGuides. You can do more with them than you can with the traditional LibGuides. So this is an example of one of our LibGuides. And I'll just go ahead and confess, since he's sitting in the back of the room, after hearing about how bad library websites are, I'm going to go and edit some of my LibGuides, because I am a passive voice librarian who cannot write in active voice. And I like to write lots and lots of words. So I'm going to go back and readdress some of my LibGuides, because we don't have any editorial review. It's like you do a LibGuide and you post a LibGuide, which may kind of retain that too. But one thing we've also done with the LibGuides that I do like, and if you'll scroll down on me, that's our digital technologies library, by the way. That's your picture. He did this for us. He wrote a little script. At least I think he wrote it. He supplied it. I don't know where he got it. I think he wrote it, but I won't say for sure certain. I just know that I can copy it in Campus Guides, which makes me happy. With this little script, where if we have a LibGuide on whatever topic, we can actually put in call number ranges, and it'll pull the new books in for that call number range, which makes it more dynamic. So students go, they're not always seeing the same content. Because I will confess, these evolved from our print Pathfinders, and our print Pathfinders we kind of tended not to update as often as we should, maybe because we all wear so many hats and are so busy that they kind of got a little old. But with this, I think at least some of the content is going to change dynamically, which will hopefully interest our students. Scroll back there. She's going to tell me I should have done my own mouse. We also have a box that pulls in the posts from our blog, which I, again, think is a cool thing. So I don't know that a lot of people are going directly to the blog. We also have a feed on our homepage from the blog. So people that go to our homepage will see things fed in from the blog, which is, again, a way to try to get that information across. And do you have the library materials question? Okay. One of the things that we like about Campus Guides over LibGuides, and that's why we upgraded, was the ability to do these online forms. And I think we've heard lots about campus IT at various schools throughout the last 2 days. And one of the reasons that we wanted this, as soon as we saw that we could host our own forms on Campus Guides, was because we were at the mercy of the university webmaster. We did not have a web server in the library. It was a university web server. So sometimes they would decide to make changes, like to totally reformat the website, and they really wouldn't give you enough warning. And there was a period, was it 2 weeks? About 2 weeks, that we couldn't edit our pages. And the problem was that when they made that change, they killed all our forms, our library materials requests, our IL forms, and we didn't have access to fix them. So we were without our forms working for quite a while. So when we saw that we could put those forms on Campus Guides, we're like, okay, we've got to have that. So we started with the library materials request, and our webmaster is working on transitioning the IL forms away from the university web server to LibGuide or Campus Guides. And I'm sorry, I kind of use them interchangeably because we kept our address at LibGuides. We didn't change to Campus Guides when we upgraded. Another SpringShare product that most of you are probably familiar with is LibAnswers. And again, this was something we probably should have already had because it's been around a little while. The thing I like most about this is the ability to create that knowledge base. So if a question's been asked, and when you answer it, you choose to add it to the knowledge base. Then a student types in a similar question and they might get presented with the answer so that they don't have to wait for your response. Because let's just face it, we're not always available to answer emails. So hopefully this is a little bit better. I don't know if all of you are aware, but there is a feature, an add-on, there's always an add-on, that you can actually do text messaging via LibAnswers. And we did pay a little bit extra for this feature. So if a student has their cell phone and they have a question they want to ask the library, they can actually text that question to that number. And it'll come into LibAnswers just like any other question. The librarians then log into LibAnswers, submit their answer, and the student gets a text back. So we are handling it through LibAnswers, but they are getting it through text. One way that we want to address that issue with making faculty aware of our resources is through LibGuides. And please don't look at all my words. I promise I'm going to redesign it after this morning. I promise. Because I was sitting there thinking, we cannot show that website today. We cannot show that website. I like to write a lot in the passive voice. It's an issue I have to need to work on. But the purpose of this guide is, for one thing, one of my main objectives is to educate our faculty that it is not okay to post PDFs in course management software. I have gradually been doing that one by one, but I need a more systematic way to make them understand why that is not a good idea, since I have to review all the licenses for all our databases. I know how bad an idea that is. So one of the things here is we're going to tell them what they can and cannot do, but after this morning's session, that's going to become a Q&A session. What can I do? I am always willing to learn more. But we also have here, we're going to give information on the advanced features. Because I think one of the things that our faculty are missing out on are some of those special features in most of the databases. The MyEBSCO host, where you can share folders, where you can do journal alerts, search alerts. So we want to make them aware of that. And we also want to make sure they know how to link to content rather than posting PDFs. So the goal is, when this is complete, to have instructions on all the databases that allow durable links to content, to have that information, to have information on how to use the advanced features like the personal folders and the journal and search alerts. And Lee is also developing a LibGuide for new faculty to make them aware of library resources and services. Okay, upgrading our resources. As like everybody else, we have gradually been transitioning more of our materials money away from print resources to electronic resources. A lot of this has been electronic books. We have been on board with every Net Library Shared collection except for the last one. That's because I'm out of money. I'll probably get it next fiscal year if it's still available. We have also done EBO. We'll make our faculty happy. And obviously, at least one faculty member really thought we should have EBO. So we added EBO and we added select modules of ECHO. And if you're not familiar with that, it's 18th century collections on online and early English books online are those two products. We've also purchased Cambridge Histories. We've done select titles from Rittenhouse and Nursing. And the state consortia, Network of Alabama Academic Libraries, just added some Springer ebooks. So we now have some Springer ebooks, and hopefully we'll figure out how to make those available to students soon. In addition to the ebooks, we've done digital collections of primary documents, again, the ECHO and the EBO. We've also got one series of Redex Early American newspapers. If Lee has her way, we will get more. Of course, Lee wants everything, which is a problem. She's always telling me, I want you to buy this. I'm like, I don't have that much money. Bill Gates doesn't have enough money to buy all the things that Lee wants for our library. She asks for everything. And the director no longer hears me when I say, Lee thinks we really need it. He says, Lee wants everything. So we will probably make Lee happy and get more of the Redex collections, because we now have a master's in history and we need to address our history resources. We also added a historical New York Times. That was something that our new director came in and was a little surprised, I think, that we didn't have. Especially since we had dropped the microfilm. I did not drop the microfilm. My predecessor dropped the microfilm, so I was a little concerned that we were relying only on the HTML versions and the ProQuest newspapers. So we picked up historical New York Times to address that. Of course, as I said, we've been doing local digital collections. We have expanded Lee has those both. Of course, we have our UNA athletics, the nitrate collection, postcards collection, and historical markers collection. And actually, I think all the photographs in our historical markers collection were done by one of our librarians. And most of those have come up in the last couple of years. They're fairly new. One of the most fun products we've been adding, I think, is streaming audio and video. As I said, we've got quite a few collections of Alexander Street Press streaming video. How many of you have Alexander Street Press? Well, you know, I bought some of the streaming video last year, and I kept looking at the usage statistics, and I kept thinking, I use it more than the usage statistics show. So I was a little disappointed with the usage statistics, but even they admitted that their usage statistics were crappy. I got a response from our vendor, or our rep, who probably shouldn't have forwarded it because it was to her from one of the associate vice presidents. I think they were admitting how crappy their usage statistics were in a not so nice way, but I was like, oh, they even admitted. But they are better now because since January, they've redone their website, and one of those databases went through the roof. I could not believe the use on one of those databases after they got the usage statistics fixed. So I'm very happy now. I think it's getting the use to justify it. The Alexander Street Press, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, those products are actually quite reasonable. When we did the quotes for those, I was really surprised that they were not more expensive, especially the subscription versus the purchase, although we did do some purchases because, again, some of their pricing is crazy. Some of them, if you plan on having it more than 3 years, at least for our quote, you do better off to just buy it. So that's why we did buy it. I had looked at Films on Demand several times. Films on Demand was very, very expensive. I was kind of opposed to purchasing it because it was so expensive. But our new director, you know, technology. So we did license Films on Demand. We started June. In our first month of use, which was June, and there's nobody on our campus in June, we had over 3,000 searches of Films on Demand. I about fell out when I saw that number. I quickly printed it, took it to the new director, and said, oh my goodness, we actually made a good decision there because that's just phenomenal. Although I think it might be that history faculty member who was so excited because I did at least make one person happy with that. And that was an interesting thing, although we have kind of made a policy now that not all our faculty know about, that we're no longer going to buy the Films for the Humanities DVDs if it's in the collection. So that's how that one faculty member knew about it, because I sent him a nice little email that said, I received your request, but I'm not going to fill them because they're in the database. And then he was thrilled to death and said he was going to have video homework now that we had that database. So students might be unhappy, but I think the faculty are going to be receptive to that. And if we hold out with even a half of that usage for the rest of the term of that license, then we will have made a really good investment. Streaming audio, we had classical music online from Alexander Street Press. We had 3 simultaneous users, and it really wasn't turning out to be enough. So when we did our recent renewal, we upgraded to Music Online, which provides unlimited simultaneous users and actually adds quite a bit of content. And that's been fairly well received. Our music department is just absolutely in love with all the Alexander Street all the Alexander Street Press music products. So if you're not familiar with those, I suggest you take a look because they are relatively inexpensive. If you want to dip your toe into streaming audio and video, those are probably some good products to look at. I don't think I actually listed all the video collections we have from them, but we have counseling, therapy, and video, part 1 and 2. We have education and video. We have theater and video, which has been highly successful, and American history and video. We're looking maybe at world history and video. I'm going to wait a little while and see how their usage statistics play out now that they seem to be more accurate before we add that. We are also looking at increased access to online periodicals, which I'm almost afraid to talk about since everybody's been bad-mouthing the big deals lately. But we have actually increased our big deals lately. Some of the ways that we have done our increased access to online periodicals is by upgrading some of our packages. When Wiley renewed most recently through our consortia, we actually upgraded to the full collection. When we renewed Sage, we had 1 Sage collection. We had Sage Criminology. We upgraded to Sage Premier. But for us, for the size school we are, those actually tended to be pretty good deals because we were getting a lot more content for not a lot of money, especially when they base it on print subscriptions, and we never had many print subscriptions, so we end up with a pretty sweet deal on those. We have also been activating more of our print journals that come with online, and that's kind of been the previous acquisitions librarian didn't bother with print plus online. We tended not to activate anything. If EBSCO activated, oh, that was fine, well and good, but it didn't end up in our A to Z list, and Lee drives me crazy because she'll call and say, why can't I get in this journal on Springerlink? I don't have a clue why you get that journal because it's not in the catalog, it's not on the A to Z list. Let me investigate. Oh, that's print plus online, and it had been turned on by EBSCO, but nobody had ever bothered to put it in the catalog, and we've actually found that we have a lot of full text access to things that aren't in our aggregate. They're not anywhere, but we've activated that, but nobody knew that we had activated that. So that's become a problem that we're going to have to address to make sure that our students and our faculty know that we have access to it. But first, we have to know we have access to it. So I'm going to have to do a review of all of these past invoices and see what we were paying for print plus online for. We've also been adding more aggregator databases that have the full text versions, and that has addressed some of our problems. One of those problems was when I got a faculty member calling, you don't have this journal, can I just scan my copies and post it in the WebCT? And I'm like, please don't do that. So what journals do you need? So she gave me the list of journals she needed, and we were able to actually add a full text version of one of our databases that addressed her needs without breaking the bank and without violating copyright. So hopefully she's now posting links to content rather than scanning print copies. And I did put up here, and we just added at the beginning of this month, ProQuest data sets. Because as Lee said, we do have an increasing emphasis on research in the university. And one of the things I had a faculty request for was a subscription to a service that offered data sets. But the service they wanted was beyond our means. So we looked at ProQuest data sets, and I don't know if you've looked at it, but it's really cool. We did a trial, and I kind of didn't understand everything that there was, and I'm like, I don't really like that much. But then I did a webinar, and I'm like, oh, that is so cool. If I can just get faculty to like it as much as I like it, I think it will be very useful and beneficial. And one of the things I liked most about it was while students are in there, they can actually add content. So if they find total expenditures for materials and they find total expenditures on print, they can actually add a component to that graph, and they can actually use a calculator feature to calculate the percentage, and it adds that data to the chart and it adds it to the graph. And then they can export the data to various statistical programs or to a tab delimited Excel file so that they can do statistical analysis. So hopefully this will address some of the emphasis on research that the university has been placing. We talked about all these changes. Now what do we plan for the future? Or what do we hope for the future? Well, one of the nice add-on modules that is available for campus guides is a course reserve system. And like all the SpringShare products, it is relatively inexpensive in comparison to other products. So we're hoping that we can explore that and perhaps sometime in the future offer true electronic reserves where we do scan materials and make them available through that system. It seems to work fairly well. It's not very complicated to use. And one of the nice things about Campus Guides that I don't think I mentioned before is it has a lot of authentication issues or options where you can authenticate via IP and all of that through Campus Guides, which for us, hopefully will address some of the course reserve issues. Also for the future, we see a need for increased staff. As Lee said, one of our most limited resources is time. All of the areas in the library, every librarian wears multiple hats. Nobody gets to do just one job. And all of those jobs have been changing over the years. Because when I took over acquisitions, I didn't really know what I was getting myself in for. I'll just confess that right now. I did not learn how to do license agreements in library school, and that has been a challenge. So I purchase all the materials that the library buys no matter what the format. So I have to do electronic resources, I have to do print. And pretty much everybody in the library is like that. They wear multiple hats. So if we keep offering new services, something's got to give. We either have to get more people or we're going to have to abandon the service. And since I like everything we do, I don't want to abandon anything. I say we should need to add more people so that we can meet that increased need for man hours. And of course, we live in the age of accountability. Everybody, I think, has talked a little bit about assessing resources. So obviously, we need to find ways to assess all of these new planned changes. And there is a LibShare product, and I don't want to call it LibShare, SpringShare product called Lib Analytics that we're currently trying to convince our boss to buy. And I think you might. I don't think you can actually collect data there, but it's kind of a repository for the data, and you can run some nice analytics from there. And we already subscribe or added on to Lib Answers the ref analytics product, which will actually keep reference statistics and allow you to do some analysis within Lib Answers. I will say there is a downside to that because I set that up. And I was the first person to answer a question, I think, and then I had to answer all those questions in ref analytics. And I'm like, it's actually a lot more work than I thought it would be. Because to get all that data, somebody has to put it in. How long did it take to answer this question? What time of day was the question answered and all that? So there's a cost with that. So that's actually going to add work to us doing some of these assessments. So we've kind of talked about our journey, and as I said, we are not at the end. We will never be at the end of our journey because what is relevant will always be changing. Does anybody have any questions?
Comments, anything you're doing at your library that you want to share? Yes.
Did the starting to use EDS, did that change your instruction and how?
Ask me in December.
Okay.
We actually haven't started teaching it in
Okay.
instruction sessions. We will do that in the fall.
We just started using it this week, so.
Okay, and that is something I'm very interested in.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how that's going to work yet. But I will have to get your name.
To Edward, do you have anything you might add to that? Do you have anything from the instructions?
Yeah.
Some of us have talked.
Okay. You want to share with the rest of us?
Sure. We implemented MSU Discovery Service last August, and after our previous experiences with federated searching, we weren't real sure how it was going to fit into instruction. It has done very well. It solves a lot of the problems that we have in federated searching. It's not a fit for every class, but for classes that it's a good fit for, students understand, they like the simplicity of it. I think one of the surprises we've had is just how well faculty have taken to it. When we first started talking about it, I think we really saw it as an undergraduate tool that faculty like that simplified one search approach as well. So it has, you have to work with it and work with the implementation, and you kind of modify it. There were some things we found that were a good fit for it, some things that weren't a good fit for it. They cost our access services people problems. But from an instructional perspective, because we're a big EdScare shop anyway, so it's that common interface that students are already going to be familiar with, and it brings the OPAC back into the search where they were missing it a lot of times before.
We demo films on demand at AUM back in the spring. Did y'all have any problems with, what did y'all find was y'all must have a very robust and speedy campus network to be able to handle it, because the problem we ran into it was that we did not have the throughput to actually be able to show the films without that jerky buffering crap going on. And we couldn't convince IT services to open up the network throughput for the library for that.
So far, we have not had any problems. And I did ask the director if we should perhaps talk to them before we actually licensed it, just to give them a heads up.
Yeah, that you have.
They can figure it out. Once
Yeah.
if we have a problem, they'll just have to fix it.
The faculty
Okay.
loved it. The faculty loved it. They thought it was great. We would love to have purchased it. But the biggest complaint was that buffered. So you had to go in, if they wanted to show it in a class, they would have had to go in 5 or 10 minutes before the class started, get it all down to buffer, hit pause, and then be able to show it. And some of the longer ones, you know.
And I did a lot of testing in my own office.
Yeah,
And I was like, well, that's working fine for me. Works fine for my home connection, because I was worried too about users at home.
What we found is it worked better from our home connections than from our campus connections. And that on days when they were not having classes and there were no students on campus, like Fridays or Sundays, no problem. But once you had everybody on campus with different devices, it just eats it up.
And we might have problems later, but for now it's working, and I hope it will continue to work, because it's a really great product, and it's very library friendly, because it has one of the easiest persistent links I have ever seen in a database. It's right there, it's easy to make clips, it's easy to make playlists, it's easy to put those in your course management system. And actually, one of our staff members said she knew what she was doing the entire weekend, that first weekend, because she had already made a playlist, because she had stuff that she just wanted to watch on her own.
Yeah.
So.
You might want to keep an eye on that.
I hate to ask this, but was that also the item you were saying was surprisingly cheap?
No, Films on Demand was very expensive.
Okay.
I was unhappy with how much it was. The Alexander Street Press products, I was surprised at how inexpensive they were for what they are. And actually, I've been very happy. We added education and video as a purchase, and they're still building that. It's not complete yet, but some of the vendors that they use, like Learning Z, are vendors that we were buying DVDs from. So I'm going to have to watch closely, because I just wish that I could stop buying any Insight Media products. I don't know if any of you buy Insight Media, but I absolutely hate Insight Media and DVDs. So I'm hoping if I buy more streaming video, that I can stop using some of our DVD vendors that are difficult to deal with. Anybody else have any questions?
Just kind of a comment, the Alexander Street Press, I don't know if you've noticed that there's a tiny mobile icon on there, and so that you can like put those, like upload like the classical music, whatever, if somebody has to listen to
Yeah.
10 fugues, whatever, they can just upload it and it stays on their device. I think it times that out for 48 hours or something, so it's kind of like checking it out for 2 days.
Yeah, and it'll send them a text with a URL, which I think is pretty cool.
Or QR code.
Yeah. Yeah, Lee doesn't like QR code, or she gets my part of that. I'm hoping you can answer.
And you gotta keep up with your progress on the campus guides. We just turned it on last week. So we've had live guides forever, but campus guides, the forms, that was
Yeah.
fun.
I like it. And apparently our webmaster liked that mobile site builder, since he quickly redesigned our site and messed up my PowerPoint. And we're hoping that we can build more mobile sites.
Do you have any other questions or comments? Do you, would some of you all like a copy of their PowerPoint? Okay, why don't we pass that? I'm also gonna